Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Zooming into the Parsha. And we are going to discuss this week's Parsha, Ki Sisa. Fascinating ideas. So much to say. These are one of the Parshas that are packed with every single pasuk, every little Parsha that there is inside is another drasha, another vort, another insight, another message that is eternal in the words of the Torah. And since that we're describing and we've been talking about the last several weeks, the construction of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle, there's a very beautiful idea in this week's Parsha all about what it really took for the Jewish people to construct the most incredible physical edifice in this world. As we know, the Mishkan itself was the dwelling place of the Shekhinah. That is the language, Mishkan, Shekhinah. It's the place in which the Shekhinah, the divine presence, is going to dwell. And in order for a human being to harness all of the physicality of this world and somehow transport it and transform it into a spiritual entity in which the Shekhinah is going to dwell, it takes a lot of chachma, a lot of wisdom, a lot of bina, a lot of deep understanding, and a lot of das, a lot of knowledge of exactly what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from the Jewish people when they're taking their hammers and their nails and their fires and their wool and their weaving machines in order to develop something in which the Shekhinah in the physical world is going to be able to call his home, the place where he's going to hang his hat for Klal Yisrael. So what did it take to build this incredible and amazing place in the physical world where the Shekhinah will be able to dwell? So the Ramban asks in the beginning of this, in this week's Parsha, he asked a very important question that we need to understand if we're going to be able to appreciate exactly what the miracle of the Mishkan is. It is no less than a miracle, as we're going to see. And he asked the question as follows. He says, we're talking about Klal Yisrael. They've been coming from back-breaking labor in Mitzrayim in Egypt. They were used to working with mortar and with bricks and with mud and with straw. They knew buildings, they knew pyramids, they knew the sands of Mitzrayim, of Egypt. They didn't know anything about artisanship. They knew nothing about sculpting. They knew nothing about melting down gold and silver and copper. They didn't know how to weave, how to dye wool. They knew nothing of the sort. And the Ramban is bothered. How is it possible that a nation that was coming out of slavery, wandering through the wilderness, coming to Har Sinai, receiving the Torah, how is it possible that they were able to conduct themselves like the greatest craftsmen that the world had ever seen before and design with absolute perfection an edifice in this physical world that was so spiritual and so beautiful and so noble and elite that the Shekhinah said, I'm going to come and dwell inside of that place. Where did they learn this from? They didn't go to school. There were no trade schools over here. They cannot become an apprentice to somebody that was a bigger expert than they were because there were no experts. There was nobody in the world. So ask the Ramban, how is it possible lo yimatze baki b'kol ha'umnas kulam? There was no one that was an expert in any of these areas. How in the world were they able to do and pull off one of the greatest projects in all of history? We look at all different projects that are going along, that are going around town. This one's building a house. This one is building a building. They're building apartment complexes. That's wood and nails. That's hammers. Those are saws. Those are automatic nail guns. That's all that cement trucks coming in, plaster on the outside. That's all that it is. But and you have plenty of people that are around the world today. They know what they're doing. From the engineer who makes the blueprints, to the contractor who's out there hiring all the workers, to the workers themselves. They didn't all go through trade school. They didn't all go through everything. They learned on the job training. They know what they're doing. But when it came to building the Mishkan, something that is so incredibly awesome and infused with the Kedusha of the Shekhinah, And every single detail had to be just so. Otherwise, the magic or the mystique of the Mishkan would not work. Ask the Ramban, where in the world did they get the wherewithal to be able to do this? It doesn't make any sense at all. On that, the Pasuk says in this week's Parsha, and we've discussed these ideas a little bit over the last several weeks, but I'd like to go deeper tonight. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe ben Re'eh, take a look. Karasi v'shem B'tzalel ben Uri ben Chur lemata Yehuda. I've called out the name of B'tzalel. And B'tzalel, the Gemara says, if you take his name and you divide it in two, you have B'tzel Kael. This man was created B'tzel in the shadow of Hashem, which means that he understands. He's living in the shadow, in the shade of the Ribono Shel Olam. He understands what it is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants him to do. How to build, how to construct, how to weave, how to dye, how to sculpt, how to shape, how to form, how to cut, where to do it, how to construct. He understands. But how does he understand? Well, he's a slave. He came from slavery like everybody else. I have filled him up with the Spirit of God, b'chachma, with wisdom, u'bisvuna, with understanding, u'b'das, and knowledge, u'b'chol malacha, in all of the areas of the work that has to be done in the Mishkan to construct it and to build it. I filled him up so that he should understand and know what to do. Still, we don't know where did he get it from. And the Pesukim go on and they say, I assigned somebody else with him, to go and do the work with him. And then the Pasuk says, Ubelev kol chacham leiv. And in the heart of all of the wise-hearted individuals, Nasati chachma, I've placed wisdom, v'asu eis kol asher tzivisicha, and they will do everything that I've commanded you to do. Says the Torah, there is a person, or there are people in Klal Yisrael, and it sounds like over here it's the majority of the people that were coming to be involved in the building of the Mishkan. They had something that was called Chacham Leiv. They were a wise-hearted individual. And because that they were a Chacham Leiv, because that they were wise-hearted, therefore, says the Torah, Nasati Chachma, I gave them more wisdom. And the wisdom that I implanted inside of each and every one of them is the ability to understand how to build and construct and to sculpt and to shape and to form the Mishkan. Ask the Ramban and the other Meforshim over here, where did this Chacham Leiv, where did this wisdom, it sounds like it's wisdom for building. It sounds like it's the wisdom of a contractor, the wisdom of a craftsman. Where did the wisdom come from if they never learned anything before? Remember, they're coming out of slavery from Egypt. They're wandering through the wilderness 50 days. This, according to Rashi, is taking place after the Chet HaEgel, after the sin of the golden calf, which means that the Jewish people are not in a very good position right now. And yet somehow they have Chachmas Halev, they have wisdom that is there in the heart. Where did they get this wisdom, this knowledge, this understanding, this depth of craftsmanship to be able to build such a beautiful Mishkan, a tabernacle, as we have? So the Netziv writes over here on these words of what it means, Chacham Leiv. He says, B'kayach habitachon, they came with trust in Hashem. Sheyichakem b'malachazu, that they would be endowed and they would be graced with this wisdom. Af al gav shelo lamda, even though they never learned it before. V'lo iman yadav la ma'olam, and they never put their hands to this craftsmanship in their entire life. But since they came with the bitachon, with the trust in Hashem, that if all we want to do is His will, And we'd like to be able to build the Mishkan the way that he says and make it look beautiful and magnificent, exactly the way that it is outlined and detailed in the blueprints and the plans. So then we trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu that although we don't know how to do things, we don't understand exactly how everything is going to work, but since that we want to be able to do everything that Hashem needs us to do to build the Mishkan, we trust that he's going to fill up our hearts and our minds with the wisdom that is necessary to be able to build the Mishkan for the Shekhinah to dwell here in the wilderness. Says in Netziv, a Pella, a wonder. The Jewish people, in fact, did not know what they were doing. The Jewish people, in fact, they had no experience behind them. Like the Ramban is asking, the Jewish people, in fact, did not have the expertise to even draw one little piece of wool and dye it the proper color. They didn't know that. But they trusted in Hashem. That if, in fact, we're coming to do your bidding, and we're coming to do your will, and our intention is to be able to build a Mishkan that is going to be a tabernacle that you and your Shekhinah are going to grace, then we have no doubt that you're going to give us the wisdom inside of us to move our hands around and do the right things. We're going to have the understanding to be able to make a tabernacle that is going to bear the stamp of your approval, and you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, are going to see absolute perfection. But remember, it's not a regular building. It is a building in which every single act that they did, as the Gemara says over here, B'Tzalel was someone who knew how to be mitzaref, the Isis. He could combine the letters that HaKadosh Baruch Hu used to create the heavens and the earth, creation itself. The Mishkan is a microcosm of the entire world. It is a miniature creation that is going on inside of there. It is godliness, it is freshness, it is newness at its best and finest form. And it is a place that is infused with the Kedusha and the Tahara of the Shekhinah. In order to be able to accomplish that, it had to be nothing short of miraculous. The way in which the Jewish people were going to come and they were going to build and make every little detail exactly the way that Hashem wanted. How could they do such a thing if they have no knowledge, if they have no experience, if they never went to school? The only way to do it is they came with bitachon, they trusted in Hashem, that we so badly want to do what you are asking of us. You are going to make the miracle that we're going to have an understanding, and we're going to have a relationship to these measurements that are here, and our hands will start moving, and we'll be able to construct the Mishkan exactly the way that you are asking us to do it. That means, and this is in all the Sifrei Musa, all the works of our Musa giants, that when a person has a cheshik, when they have a desire, and they have a ratzon, they have a will to accomplish and to do and to progress and to achieve and to be successful in this world. When a person has deep desires to do things that are going to find chen, find favor in the eyes of Hashem, to be able to follow the directives that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us. So then that desire alone that the person has is enough to give them the wherewithal inside to be able to accomplish whatever it is that they put their mind to. As the Gemara tells us, B'derech Adam roitze leilech ba. The way, the path that a person wants to go in. Not that he's going in, but that he wants to go in. He didn't even move yet. But he wants to go in a certain direction. He wants to accomplish certain things. He'd like to be able to get to a point that he never was before. Meilichin Oisai HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to bring him in that direction. Because if you have a ratzon, if you have a will, you have a desire, you want to be able to accomplish and to achieve. So then there is nothing that is going to be able to stand in your way and hold you back from achieving those goals that you want. There might be hurdles along the way. There might be stumbling blocks. You might take a wrong turn here and over there, and you'll have to reroute your Waze or your GPS. All of that, that's fine. That's all par for the course. But if you're someone that wants, if you're someone that has a cheshik, a desire, then it's impossible that all of those blockages are going to end up standing in your way, because Molichin Eisai, Hashem is going to drag you along. He's going to pull you along in the direction that you want to go in. And this really, Rabbeinu Yonah writes that if you think about it, these people, they didn't have the chachma, the wisdom. They didn't have the background. They didn't have the understanding of how to build. And therefore, as the Gemara says like this, the Gemara says that based on this story in the Torah, that you have a Betzalel, and you have the Chacham Lev, you have the wise-hearted individuals. The Gemara tells us over here, from here, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said, Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu Noisein Chachma. Hashem only gives wisdom. Ela lemi sheyesh by Chachma, to someone who already has wisdom. From the fact that the people came with wisdom in their heart, Hashem loaded them up. He poured it in. He filled them up with more wisdom to be able to build the Mishkan. And therefore we see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu only gives wisdom to those people that have wisdom already. But the question comes back to ask itself. They didn't have wisdom in regards to building this structure. They didn't know the malacha, the work that had to be done. They didn't understand how to make ornate parts of the Mishkan to make it exactly the way, just we learned in last week's parsha, all of the clothing of the Kohen Gadol, how intricate and refined and how precise every little detail was that was there, how it had to look and how it had to fit and everything that was on top. How in the world did they understand that? They didn't have the chachma, they didn't have the wisdom. Says the Gemara, from here we learn that Hashem gives wisdom to those that have wisdom. What wisdom did they have? So Rabbeinu Yonah writes that wisdom is not what you know, but rather wisdom is how strong your cheshik, your desire, and your ratzon and your will is to acquire wisdom. And if a person has a strong, burning desire to have more wisdom, to accomplish more, to do more, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will look at that person as a wise man. Oh, you're wise? Because you want to have wisdom? Then I'm going to load you up with all of the wisdom that you need and is necessary. For example, Rav Matisyahu Solomon says that a person can go to school for everything. They go to school to become a doctor. It takes many, 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 many years to go through that schooling, education, and then there's residency at the end after 10 years already of school, another few years of residency, and finally when the person is already 38 years old and a few $100,000 in debt, they can start practicing medicine. And then insurance doesn't really pay bills anymore, so then they're stuck after all of that. It takes years and years and years to get there. A person wants to be a lawyer. They go to undergrad, then they go to graduate school, then they go to law school, then they have to take their bar exam. And they study and they study and they study. And finally, after all of that, so many years later, they finally pass all the exams and they can start practicing law in whatever state they're in. When it comes to construction, you go and you learn, and you have to understand the electrical and the plumbing and the this and that. You have to go to class, you have to learn. For everything in life that is valuable, there's either a diploma, there's either an advanced studies, for every profession, for anything that is out there. But he writes, I guess unusually he writes that perhaps the place where a person has to put in their most effort is the place that there's no diploma, There's no advanced learning. There is no school that you're going to go to. And he says that is that when a child is born and you become a parent overnight, instantaneously you become a parent, suddenly you are expected to care for and to take care of and to raise this new gift of life that was just put in your hands. But you never went to parenting school. You never went to parent medical school or law school. You just have a child, and suddenly, poof! That moment you become a parent, and you're expected to know it all. Says Ramatas Solomon. You know what that means? That means that inside the heart and the soul of every single person is the ability, if they want, is the ability to be the best parent for that child that could possibly be. We are laden, we are imbued, we are infused with all of that knowledge that's inside of us. But you have to want to be able to dig in and find what you need to use in order to raise our children in the right way. Similarly, over here, the Rebbeinu Yonah is saying that when it came to the building of the Mishkan, it comes to any chachma, any wisdom in the world, half of the job is wanting to know what you are doing. Half of the road to expertise is wanting to become an expert. Half of the smashing success is wanting to succeed. And when a person has a ratzon, they have a will, and they truly desire to get to that level where they know is where they could reach, and they trust that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give them all of that, then in fact a person is going to get there. And really we see from the parsha over here, there's no doubt about it. Later on in Parshas Vayakil, it comes back and visits Betzalel and the Chacham Lev, the wise-hearted individuals. And over here, the Netziv writes similarly to what he said before. It says, Malei Oisam, the verse writes over here, Milei Oisam Chachmas Lev. I'm going to fill up the hearts of the wise-hearted individuals. Liftayach, they trusted, Shiatzlichu b'maseihem, that they will succeed in their actions. Again, he says, the one who has wisdom in his heart is someone who trusts that they are going to be successful. I don't know everything I'm doing. I'm not aware of how everything works. I'm not even sure exactly what it is that I'm getting myself into over here. But I know that if HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to do this, I can trust and rest assured that I'm going to succeed in my endeavors. This, he writes, is the key to our success. Again, if we're trying to succeed in those things that are beneficial, if we're trying to succeed in those things that are a benefit to ourselves, to our families, to Klal Yisrael, to mankind, and it's something that is going to find favor in the eyes of Hashem, so then I can trust Shiatzlichu b'maseyim, I'm going to succeed in my ways. And then he writes, V'lahayo eis maspik sheyilamdu kol ha'kabbalah shebal peh mipi Moshe. It was impossible, says the Netziv, that they could have possibly learned all the instructions from Moshe at this time. The Mishkan went rather fast. There wasn't a long training course that took place over here. Moshe Rabbeinu said the verse. There were a lot of details that were included in every single verse. And then Netziv says it's impossible that they could have learned everything. Similar, like we saw when it came to all the laws of Pesach that the Jewish people had to do in the first Pesach of the history of the Jewish people while they were still in Mitzrayim. Reb Revda points out over there that it's impossible that the Jewish people from Rosh Chodesh Nisan until the 14th day of Nisan, that's 2 weeks, it is humanly impossible that they could have learned all of the laws and all of the details that they needed in order to be Makayim, to fulfill the mitzvahs of Matzah, of Korban Pesach. They had to do Bris Milah. They had to learn how to roast the Korban Pesach, the sacrifice in the right way, how to eat it, where to eat it, when to eat it. They had to know about the maror, the bitter herbs. They had to know how to recline. They had to know so many things they had to know. It is humanly impossible that a slave nation whose mind was about as dense as a shmura matzah ball on Pesach night, how in the world could they have learned it? Because they wanted to learn it. And they wanted to make sure that what they did on the night of the Seder was exactly the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted them to keep it. And as a result, although it was an impossibility to learn as much as they learned, Hashem made a miracle. They gobbled up the wisdom. They absorbed like a sponge every single detail that they were taught from Moshe and from Aaron. And they didn't have to review it many times. They got it like that. And therefore, by the time that they came to Pesach of that year, while they were still in Egypt, they knew how to do bris milah. They knew how to shecht. They knew how to do sacrifice and how to sprinkle the blood. They knew how to prepare the sacrifice and to roast it and to eat it. They knew it all. Because when a person trusts and believes, even though that it's impossible to learn everything, however, in their wisdom, they focused in, they had the intention that they wanted to do everything. Their intention was, we'll do everything that HaKadosh Baruch has commanded us to do. So lo and behold, miracle of miracles, the nation was able to construct and to build the greatest structure that the world has ever seen. That means that the entire building of the Mishkan itself was built, b'derech nes, was built miraculously. And it was built by a nation who found the ratzon, the desire inside, the will inside. They found the conviction inside of them to build something that would be able to house the Shekhinah, to house HaKadosh Baruch Hu's divine presence, which means that any time that a person wants to do something that is going to bring more of the Shekhinah into their life, any time that a person wants to accomplish something in their learning, in their davening, in their mitzvahs, in their connection to Hashem, any time that a person does, but you don't feel adequate yet, you don't feel that you're on that level, you don't feel that you've reached enough knowledge, enough understanding, enough wisdom to be able to accomplish what the goals are that you have in your mind, the Torah is telling us over here, that doesn't really matter. If you trust in Hashem that you could succeed, then you will succeed. If you trust that you are wired with everything that is necessary to be able to understand what the Torah is talking about, then you will learn and you will understand and you will accomplish. Like the Gemara tells us, while a child is inside of the womb of its mother, there is a Malach Hashem, there's an angel that is sitting with the baby day and night and is teaching him Kol HaTorah Kula, the entirety of the Torah. The child is in there. That's one of the reasons that when a pregnant woman is walking and there's a choice between one person and another person walking through the door, you let the pregnant woman go first. Why? There is an angel inside of her stomach that is learning with her child. You can't get better than that, folks. And she deserves the honor and the respect to walk through the door first. So the Gemara says, though, something very interesting. It says, as the child is going through childbirth and comes into this world, the angel that taught it all of the Torah taps it on its mouth when it comes into the world, and it forgets everything. Forgets it all. Asks Rav Dessler, if the child is going to forget all of the Torah that it learned while it's in the mother's womb, then what is the point of learning it at all? You go to a shiur, you go to a class, and you sit there, you're half paying attention, half not paying attention. You walk out of the room, you basically learn nothing. So what was the point of going? Should have stayed home. Oh, you did stay home tonight. Yeah, you should have stayed home. Why did you go to the class? A person goes to medical school for 20 years, 10 years. and they don't pay attention. So what is the point of going to medical school? To torture yourself? What did you go for? The child for 9 months is learning all of the Torah with the Malach, with the angel. The deepest secrets, mystical, revealed, concealed, everything that you need to know. And it comes in the world, pats it on the mouth, and the child then forgets everything. So what was the point of all that? It's a nice story in the Gemara, makes us feel very good. There's angels inside of the mother's stomach. She's never alone. It's an angel learning with a child. What's the point? Says Rav Dessler, the point is that once that the information was implanted inside of the mind of that child, once that the child learned all of the Torah that was there, so even though that technically it has forgotten everything that it learned, but in the subconscious, all of the knowledge is still there. And whatever knowledge is still there inside of the cerebral cortex, whatever is still inside the heart and the soul of that child, once that they begin to learn, once they begin to study, once that they begin to work hard to understand the words of the Torah, so the knowledge that's inside of them, it starts flowing and it starts opening up the well springs that are there, and it comes back that much easier. The Torah is infinite. It's gigantic. It's enormous. It's so deep. If we had 1,000 years of our life to learn, we would still never learn it all. So how can a person expect to learn even a fraction while they're alive? Says the Gemara, you know what? You got it all inside you already. It's in there. You just have to access. You have to find the chip inside your brain. You have to find that antechamber where it's all tucked away. And when you begin to get in there, you begin to be doilu mashki, you begin to bring it out and draw out the waters of Torah that are inside of you, and you'll find yourself learning and soaring into new heights and new levels. The Jewish people, as they were there in the wilderness, and they were given this command to build the Mishkan, that means that really HaKadosh Baruch Hu had from the beginning of creation, one day there's going to be a Mishkan, there's going to be a tabernacle. And the Jewish people are the ones that are going to build it. But they're going to come out of slavery. How are they going to know? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu implanted inside of the minds and the hearts and the souls of all the Jewish people all of the abilities, all of the capabilities that they would need to construct and shape and form. It was all in there. But they just had to access it once again. What is the key that accesses the deepest well springs of that wisdom inside of them? As the Netziv is saying over here, that when they came with the desire to perform the will of God, and they trusted that they would be able to kasher tziva Hashem, to do everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told them to do, then it is impossible that they would not find chachma, the wisdom, and the understanding and the knowledge inside of themselves to be able to do all of this. Look, a person learns an instrument. They never picked up a guitar before. Mentioned before in some of the shir, my son, Moshe, wanted to learn guitar. Over a year ago, he knew nothing, not even to strum one chord. Today, the guy can play with other skilled guitarists, and he can play kumsitz for an hour and a half, and he doesn't tire, he doesn't get weary. And he plays all the best songs. What did he learn? Something he never knew? It was all the capability, the potential. It was all inside of him. He just had to bring it out. And that's what we're saying over here. You want to build a Mishkan. You want to become great in Avodas Hashem. You want to reach new heights in your performance of mitzvahs, of your learning, of your davening, of your working on yourself. You want to, you could. You have to want. And when a person wants, they bring out from inside of themselves, they bring all that potential that's already there. It's just lying dormant, waiting to be used. And he concludes and he writes, Kachaya b'maisa mishkan. So this was the way the Mishkan was built. Habechira l'kol echad be'eze umnas haisa ma'elis lasais bli limud klal. Each one of the people that came to build the Mishkan, they each chose one of the malachas, one of the activities, one of the jobs that spoke to them. Why is it? You ask it. He writes over here. If you would bring a bunch of people to like some kind of a job fair, and you would tell them, "Go ahead, you pick what job you want to be." So every person is drawn to something different. This one wants to be a fireman. This one wants to go become a scientist. This one wants to become a rabbi. This one wants to become an author. This one wants to become a policeman. All the different things that are there. Why are you drawn to one over the other? The answer says in Tziv is because it's already inside of you. You're drawn after that which is already inside of you. And therefore, when the Jewish people came, each one was drawn after a different malach, a different type of work. And as a result, even though they learned nothing already, rather, since they raised up their hearts and they said, I'm going to throw all my energy into this act over here. I'm going to learn how to weave. I'm going to learn how to sew. I'm going to learn how to sculpt. I'm going to learn how to hammer out gold. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you're drawn in that direction. That's where your heart feels that you belong. So that means you have the desire, the ruts, and to do it. I'm going to be able to, I'll show you that you have everything that you need and what it takes to make such a thing. The Mishkan was built on ruts and on desire. The Mishkan was designed and it was shaped on a cheshik, on a strong yearning that everybody had to build that thing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted. And therefore, they were able to do the impossible. Just like it is almost impossible that a person who knows nothing could suddenly know everything. It is impossible to take physicality and construct it into spirituality. It's an impossibility. And yet, since that they're already coming in miraculous ways, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made an even bigger miracle, where wood and gold and silver and nechoshes and copper and colorful dyes and everything that was in between was able to become infused with spirituality, infused with the presence of the Shekhinah, because of the people that built it. That means that when you pull it all together, you come with a strong yearning and a desire to accomplish and to achieve all these Meforshim are telling us tonight. You will accomplish the greatest things more than you could even dream of and imagine. And if you want success in these areas, then you will have success. Success is not always measured the way that we think. Success in business is if you make $1 million, you're successful. Success in working out is if you have muscles, then you are successful. Success in building is if you build a building and it passes inspection and a family moves in, then you are successful. But if you are a businessman and your business keeps failing, nobody will call you successful. If you are going to take the law, the bar exam, and you keep failing the bar exam, nobody will call you a successful lawyer. If you are a contractor and you're trying to build beautiful buildings and they keep crumbling and falling down, nobody will call you a successful builder. However, when it comes to ruchniya, success in our spirituality, it's not about the finished product. It is about the effort and the exertion and the yearning that we put in to the product that we are trying to create. And a person who works hard and makes an effort and tries, that already is hatzlacha, that already is success. In this building of the Mishkan, the miracle was they wanted so badly to make a miracle over here. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I'll give it to you. You're going to build the Mishkan and it's going to be perfect, precision. You're not expertise. You're not craftsmen. You're not artisans. You don't need to be. It's all inside of you. and you're showing me that you want to, I'm going to give it to you as a gift over here. The Mishkan was a gift. It was a miracle. Even some of the things, the menorah, Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't figure out. How do you build this menorah? One piece of gold. Everything has to be construed out of one piece of gold. How do you do it? He tried, didn't work. Hashem said, take the gold, throw it into the fire. I'll take care of it. Moshe Rabbeinu takes the gold. He throws the lump of gold into the fire, and out pops a beautiful menorah, which means at the end of the day, and which is really just a symbol of everything, at the end of the day, it's all the handiwork of Hashem. At the end, we try, we put out an effort, we exert ourselves. The success, what's going to be at the end, it's all up to Him. And in our spiritual life, our pathway, our journeys of Avodas Hashem, of the service of God, we try, we make effort, we put in all the energy that we have, we push ourselves in areas that we never thought we could push ourselves before. Whether the ultimate success is that we reach the point that we want to be on or not, that's not important. If we do, that means Hashem gave it to you as a gift. But what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to see is, are you growing? Are you working? Are you striving? Are you trying? If you are, then says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you have reached success because you trusted in me, that as hard as it is to push forward sometimes, you trusted in me that I will help you. And I am going to help you. And I'm going to reward you. You didn't become the biggest Talmid Chacham in the world. You're not known as the biggest tzaddikus, most righteous woman in the world. You're not known as the most successful yeshiva bacher that ever was. That's not the goal. The goal is just keep trying. And if a person trusts the Beitech, they trust in Hashem, then that itself is the siva, is the secret and the key to their accomplishments. So the Mishkan, this amazing edifice in the physical world, which was transformed into a spiritual entity, was built with the raw intention of the Jewish people to do something that was way out of their abilities. But Hashem said, you want it? I'm going to help you build it. And that's like in every area of our life. You want something, truly, truly, truly want something, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to help you. Our problem is that our ratzon, our desire for accomplishment, our desire to raise ourselves up, our yearning inside to become better than we are today, it's so stagnant and it's so dim. And therefore, we look at ourselves after 1 year, after 2 years, after 5 years. What did I accomplish? What did I do? The question is, did we try hard enough? If we tried hard enough with emunah, with belief in ourselves and belief in our Kodesh Baruch Hu that we could do it, you get to places that you never, ever dreamed you're going to achieve before. I want to leave you off with a Maisa, a story that is a wonder of wonders. It's an intense tale, but it just comes to show that if a person will put their mind to sometimes the most dangerous and perilous and hair-raising experiences at all, they will be able to overcome and succeed and to accomplish. If anybody is well aware of the history of the Iranian Jews, how they came to America, you can ask any of them. I think there's some on here tonight, or at least the parents, you can ask any of them. It was not a simple journey to make it to American shores. At the time that the Shah of Iran was overthrown in the 70s, it became pandemonium and chaos over there. And the Jewish people, they were in very big trouble, and it was dangerous to remain in Iran. And the only way to get out, it wasn't so easy to get on a plane, take your visa, your passport, and go to another country. It didn't work like that for the Jews. Literally, they had to escape in the middle of the night by caravan, by donkeys, by camels and the like, and go through some of the scariest scenarios that you could imagine, all for the sake of achieving the goal, which was freedom from the anti-Semitic rule that was going on in Iran at the time. So listen to this story. There was an Iranian woman whose name was Arina. And she had already been thinking for quite some time that she has to get out of Iran. Her husband, Farhad, kept telling her, don't worry, everything is going to be okay, we're going to be fine, although he felt on the inside it's not so simple. And things were moving along slowly. They were looking into the possibility of smuggling themselves out of the country. They hadn't yet made a decision, and one day it all changed. Farhad owned a jewelry shop. Her husband owned a jewelry shop. And one day some bandits came in, and a brawl ensued, and they shot him, and they killed him, and he died. And at that moment, Arina knew that she had to take her children, the young ages from 3 to 14, and get them out of Iran as soon as was humanly possible. She had saved up a small fortune, and she hired the smuggling agency. And it was a very dangerous journey that they were about to embark upon. And she meets up with a smuggler, a man by the name of Riza, who is one of the Arabs that is there. And he's screaming at them, and he's warning them every step of the way. If you dare complain, if you dare talk when you're not allowed to talk, if you make noise when you can get us in trouble, he pulled out a gun, I'll take my gun, and I will kill you on the spot. And these children, 3 to 14 years old, they were frightened beyond belief. The mother was scared beyond belief, but they had no choice. This was the only hope that they had to escape the clutches of the enemies over there in Iran. So they finally met up, and he explained to them what's going to be. It's going to be a car ride. Then it's going to be a camelback through the desert. They're going to have to cross over rivers in the stealth of the night. There will be frightening escapades. And he told them, and you have nothing, you cannot complain once, otherwise that's the end, I will not take you. So they meet up with him, and they are placed in the back of a small little white car, and they're covered with sheets. And he tells them, do not move and do not make a noise. We're going through the border right now. If you dare make a noise, we're all going to be in trouble. And the children are shaking underneath the sheet, and the mother's trying to calm them all down. And they can only hear the conversation. They hear Arabic being screamed back and forth at each other. And the soldiers are screaming at this fellow Riza, and he's screaming back at them. And they're looking at his papers and his passports, questioning if it's true or not. And finally, he must have convinced them, because they hear the arm raise, and they drive through into the night. The car is driving another 20 minutes on the road, and suddenly, without any warning, the car goes off-road, traveling down bumpy roads in the mountain and the like. And the nighttime was falling, and the second leg of their journey was just beginning. The children were exhausted. They were frightened. They're petrified. They're crying to the mother, but again, Riza barks at them, I warned you. Don't make a noise, I'm going to kill you. As the car stops, and the children think maybe it's over, there's 6 large camels waiting for them. And each one, Arina and all of her children, are mounted onto the camelback, and they start going through the desert in the middle of the night. Now, although this Mediterranean desert is hot and scorching sun during the day, at night the desert is freezing. And although they were dressed with pants and with sweaters trying to keep warm, it was no match for the frigid air. And these children were chilling. They were freezing to death in that night. And yet they can't complain. Nothing. Otherwise they'll be shot. As it would go on day after day, they would rest for a short little while until daybreak, and then they would go on longer. And they realized that this journey was not ending anytime soon. And every time they would complain, which is normal for children who are scared out of their mind, Riza would show anger with them again. He said, I'm warning you, one more peep, and that will be the last one. After a few days of traveling 18 hours a day, they swapped the camels for the donkeys. And now the donkeys are carrying them up the side of a mountain. And they are on the side of a mountain with a cliff that's overlooking a deep ravine. One move in the wrong way, and that donkey falls, and that is the end. At this point, the children were so frightened, they couldn't even say one word. Not a complaint, barely even a breath. They were just praying in their minds that Hashem is going to help them get across. They made it through this. And now they got to a wadi. And they look at the waters, and the donkeys are not going through. They have to get off the donkeys, and they have to swim through. For the mother, she's large enough. The 14-year-old, she's large enough. The 10-year-old, tall enough. The 8-year-old, big enough. The 3-year-old, too small. She can't swim. So they're walking through this wadi with the 3-year-old on their shoulders, getting her across to the other side. As they're walking through, the currents of the water are pulling at their feet, and their shoes are slipping off. By the time that they got out of the river, the wadi over here, many of them were missing shoes. And they come to the other side, and there is prickly sand which is cutting into their bare feet. And still the 3-year-old cannot walk. Now at this point anyway. And so they're cutting into their feet, the scorching sun, the exhausted, tired, hungry, frightened out of their mind, and they're carrying the burden of this 3-year-old child on their shoulders as well. And as they keep going ahead, and they start showing fear, and they start complaining, Riza tells them once again, I'm warning you. We're getting close to the end, but you're not going to get there. I'm going to shoot you if you don't stop. And it was now finally one of the last nights. They knew they're getting close. But in that night, a group of Bedouins came and attacked the arena and the camp over there, and ended up stealing the last valuables that this poor woman had. Now she has nothing left to her name, but she was at least relieved they didn't touch her and they didn't touch the children. And now comes the most dangerous part of the entire journey, which is the last leg. There is a rickety bridge that extends from the edge of one cliff to another cliff. And it's not even a full bridge, it's little wood slats. And you have to walk across every slat and hold on to the little ropes on the side to be able to get across to the other side. And the children are crying. And the mother is trembling. And this man is screaming, I told you, this is the last place you have to go. If you say another word, I'm going to shoot you. You won't get there. And all the kids gather themselves. And the mother composes herself and the children. And they go slowly, one slat of wood at a time. If they miss the slat, it's down into the ravine once again. The bridge is shaking. The kids are so nervous. And lo and behold, after what seemed like an eternity, they all look and they're standing on the other side of the bridge. They are now out of Iran altogether, and they are now on Turkish soil, and that means they are free. And the children and the mother cannot believe they survived this whole ordeal. And Irina and her children have made it, and they are ready to go on into freedom. The next leg of the journey was relatively easy compared to this, and she would be able to do everything herself, and Riza is going to leave them. But as they are about to say goodbye and farewell to their sinister smuggler who screamed and yelled and threatened their life so many times, suddenly Riza, this man, walks over and he looks at this poor mother and her children and he starts crying. And he says, I'm sorry. And the mother and the children are looking, sorry? Why is this man crying right now? And he looks at them and he says the following, I'm also a Jew. He says, my job is I help the Jews escape and go to freedom. I'm so sorry that I had to be cruel. I'm so sorry that I had to be ruthless with you. But if I wouldn't have been, you never would have made it. But now that you did, and now you know what you're able to accomplish, you know that you're giborim, you're strong individuals. You're ready to face any obstacle that's going to come your way. And with that, this man who once was a cruel, ruthless individual was soft as a teddy bear and crying. He hugged goodbye to all of the children. And he gave this poor woman who lost all of her valuables in that theft, he gave her money and he told her exactly where to go and what to do for the last leg of the journey. And he wished them luck. And he said, please excuse me. I have more Jews that I have to go and save. If a person will believe that they have inside of themselves what it takes to withstand the challenges, if they believe that they have inside of themselves everything that they need to be successful and to accomplish and to achieve, then says the Torah in this week's Parsha, nothing is going to stand in your way. You will be matzliach, you will succeed. Haraya, what's the proof? Look at the Mishkan. Built by a group of people that knew nothing at all about construction, at all. But they came with bitachon, with trust in Hashem, and trusted in themselves that they had what it would take. And they built the most magnificent structure in the history of the world. An edifice in this world that was able to house the Shekhinah. In all of our lives, if we will truly believe in ourselves, if we will trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu that He's going to help us through the situations of life, if we honestly believe and we honestly yearn and we desire to accomplish bigger and better things than we have done to this date, then we can rest assured that Hashem is going to come to our aid. And He's going to be like we ourselves. We're the microcosm of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle. As it says in the Pasuk, V'asuli Migdash, make for me a Migdash, make yourselves into that tabernacle. V'shechanti b'seicham, and I will dwell inside of you, says Hashem. When we build ourselves, we create ourselves, we make ourselves greater. Hashem says, just as I rested in your handiwork in the wilderness, so too I will rest and I will dwell inside of you as well. May we be zeicha be'ez Hashem, just to realize how much we have inside of ourselves, what we could truly accomplish and we could achieve in our lives. And in that zechus, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give us the helping hand that we need. He will rest inside of us. He will help us to be successful and accomplished in our actions, in our deeds, in our avodas Hashem. And perhaps we will be the nation, we will be the generation that will be zeicha, that will merit to see the ultimate miracle in the building of the Mishkan, of the Migdash in our times, with the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu, b'imheira v'yameinu. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.